Rhyme Stew.
By Roald Dahl.
Read by Pam Ferris
And Geoffrey Palmer. Dick Whittington and his cat. Dick Whittington had oft been told that London's streets were paved with gold.
We'd better have a look at that,
he murmured to his faithful cat. And finally they made it there, and finished up in Berkeley Square. So far, so good. But Dickie knew that he must find some work to do. Imagine, if you can, his joy at being made the pantry boy to Lord and Lady Hellespont. What more could any young lad want? His lordship's house was huge and warm. Each footman wore a uniform. Rich carpets lay on all the floors, and big brass doorknobs on the doors. Why, Whittington had never seen a house so marvellously clean, although, regrettably, his cat soon did some things to alter that. His lordship kicked the cat so hard it landed in a neighbour's yard, but still, each morning on the floor, it did what it had done before. His lordship shouted,
"Fetch my gun, I'll nail the blighter on the run. Call up the beaters, flush him out, I know he's somewhere hereabout."
It is a fact that wealthy men do love to shoot things now and then. They shoot at partridge, pheasant, grouse, though not so much inside the house. But now his lordship stalks the brute with gun in hand, prepared to shoot. He crouches down behind a chair. Aha! What's moving over there? Of course, the poor sap couldn't know his wife was on the portico, locked in a passionate embrace with second footman Albert Grace. The gun goes off, bang, bang, boom, boom. The noise explodes around the room. You should have seen the lady jump as grape shot struck her in the rump. And in the kitchen, washing up, Dick jumps and breaks a precious cup. This is a crime no decent cook could bring herself to overlook. This cook, a brawny, powerful wench, put Whittington across the bench and systematically began to beat him with a frying pan, which she had very quickly got from off the stove, all sizzling hot. Poor Whittington! His rump aflame at last escapes the fearsome dame and runs outside across the street, touching his steaming, smoking seat. The cat, now very frightened, said,
"Let's beat it quick before we're dead."
At that point, with an angry shout, her ladyship comes flying out, although indeed she had been shot. It wasn't in a vital spot. She yells,
"I'm on the run as well. Old Hellespont can go to hell."
Just then a peal of bells rings out. Each bell begins to sing and shout, and Dick could quite distinctly hear a message coming through the air. He actually could hear his name. He heard the bells of Bow proclaim,
"Turn again, Whittington, thou worthy citizen. Turn again, Whittington, Lord Mayor of London." "Lord Mayor of London?"
cries the cat.
"I've never heard such rot as that."
Her ladyship butts in and yells,
"The cat is right, that's not the bells. Bow Church has got a crazy vicar, a famous and fantastic tricker, a disco king, a hi-fi buff, a whiz on electronic stuff. He's rigged up speakers in the steeple to fool dim-witted country people. Listen, you poor misguided youth, in London no one tells the truth."
She looks at Dick. Dick looks at her. She smiles and says,
"My dear sir, I must say I prefer your face to second footman Albert Grace. I think we'd make a nifty team, with me the strawberries, you the cream."
The cat cries,
"Dick, you do not want to fool with Lady Hellespont. These females from the upper classes spend their lives in making passes."
At this point, with a mighty roar, Lord Hellespont bursts through the door. He sees his wife. He lifts his gun. The lady screams and starts to run. Once more, with a colossal thump, the grape shot strikes her in the rump.
"Oh, gosh,"
Dick cries.
"I do declare that no one's bum seems safe in here."
The furious red-faced lady stands, clutching her bottom in her hands, and shouts,
"You quite deliberately pointed that filthy gun at me."
He cries,
"I aimed it at the cat."
The lady shouts,
"The cat, my hat? You don't think I'm believing that? Oh, yes, you must.
His lordship cries, blinking his crafty, boozy eyes.
I simply cannot be to blame, because all cats look much the same.
The cat cried.
That's a vicious slur. How dare you say I look like her?
Now Whittington pulls out his sword and runs it through the noble lord, shouting,
Gadzooks, hooray! There passes one member of the upper classes.
Her ladyship leaps high with joy and cries,
Well done, my scrumptious boy. The old goat's clobbered once for all. Now you and I can have a ball.
The cat shouts,
Dick, do not succumb to blandishments from that old crumb. And by the way, the man who told that London streets were paved with gold was telling dreadful porky pies.
That's Cockney rhyming slang for lies. The cat went on,
To me it seems these streets are paved with rotten dreams. Come home, my boy, without more fuss. This lousy town's no place for us.
Dick says,
You're right.
then sighs and mumbles.
Well, that's how the cookie crumbles.
St. Ives.
As I was going to St. Ives, I met a man with 7 wives. Said he,
I think it's much more fun than getting stuck with only one.
A hand in the bird.
I'm a maiden who is 40, and a maiden I shall stay. There are some who call me haughty, but I care not what they say. I was running the tombola at our church bazaar today, and doing it with gusto in my usual jolly way, when suddenly, I knew not why, there came a funny feeling of something crawling up my thigh. I nearly hit the ceiling. A mouse, I thought. How foul, how mean, how exquisitely tickly. Quite soon, I know I'm going to scream. I've got to catch it quickly. I made a grab. I caught the mouse. Now, right inside my knickers. A mouse, my foot. It was a hand. Great Scott, it was the vicar's.
The Tortoise and the Hare.
The tortoise long ago had learned, so far as eating was concerned, that nothing in the world could match old Mr. Roach's cabbage patch. Potatoes, lettuce, cabbage, peas could all be had with perfect ease, provided you had first checked out that Mr. Roach was not about. The tortoise had for very long enjoyed this lovely restaurant, but all at once, oh shame, disgrace! A ghastly thing was taking place. That horrid hare began to poach the sacred land of Mr. Roach, and worst of all, the hare got rid of far more than the tortoise did. With beans, he'd eat up every one before the tortoise had begun. The carrots all were out of sight before poor Torty had one bite. The lettuce, succulent and green, was suddenly no longer seen. And so the tortoise now began to hatch a very subtle plan. He came across the hare at dawn, demolishing a row of corn, and said to him,
Would you agree to have a sporting bet with me? I don't believe I've ever met a hare who could refuse a bet.
Hare said.
I must admit I play the horses almost every day.
The tortoise said,
I'm betting you I'd win a race between us two. You're round the twist.
The hare cried out.
You're Bonkersville, you're up the spout, while I could run to Ecuador before you'd even crossed the floor. I'd run from here to Cowdenbeath before you'd even brushed your teeth. I'd run to Pool and Beachy Head before you're hardly out of bed. Don't talk to me of how to run. A hare can outpace anyone.
The tortoise said,
Although you're fast, I'm betting you'll come in last. And by the way, you might recall, pride always comes before a fall.
The hare was so convulsed with scorn, he nearly choked upon his corn. He gagged and coughed, but when he spake, he cried,
You're on, so what's the stake?
The tortoise, after saying,
Well,
produced from underneath his shell a pen, a contract, and a seal, and then began to read the deal.
if I do lose, I hereby swear that I will never more go near or take the tiniest of nibbles from Mr. Roach's vegetables.
The hare considered for a while, then answered with a knowing smile,
That all seems eminently fair.
and signed it with a flourish, hare. The hare was later heard to say quite loudly in a scornful way,
Well, Torty, when this race is run, when you have lost and I have won, I don't know where you'll go to dine, but that's no concern of mine.
The tortoise now went on to call on Mr. Rat at evenfall, and found him in his workshop, where the rat was trying to repair a fascinatingly bizarre, bright saffron yellow motor car. The rat was famous everywhere as being a brilliant engineer, but just like all the Ratty clan, he was a crafty businessman, and well nigh guaranteed to rob his customers on every job.
Hello, old rat.
The tortoise cries, regarding him through scaly eyes.
I've come along tonight to ask about a highly secret task.
Rat, slowly putting down his spanner, assumed a sympathetic manner.
My dear old Torty.
He declared.
Now, if you want your car repaired, no,
The tortoise cried.
you're wrong. Now here's the burden of my song.
He then explained with skill and flair the details of his bet with hare. The rat said,
Oh, I do believe there's something fishy up your sleeve. It's obvious, if the race was fair, you'd have no chance against the hare. In fact, however much you cheat, you'll never beat that speedy hare. You are a dope to think you have the slightest hope.
The tortoise said,
There is, old rat, more ways than one to skin a cat.
Rat cried.
Be sensible, old man. Look, even if I were to ram a red-hot poker up your blaster, you wouldn't travel any faster. Hold it.
The tortoise cried.
My wheeze, and listen carefully, if you please, my brilliant, wonderful idea is that you build for me right here a little four-wheeled motor car that travels fast and very far, which you can screw beneath my shell in such a way no man can tell, not even bright-eyed Mr. Hare, that I've got anything down there. I'll wave my legs and off I'll go, and Mr. Hare will never know what's giving me this wondrous power to run at 60 miles an hour. Oh, rat, I know you'll do it right, the little wheels just out of sight, the engine tucked away as well, all hidden underneath my shell.
The rat was stunned. He stretched his eyes, he stood and shouted with surprise.
By gum! I never would have guessed an ancient bird like you possessed such genius in your upper story. This has to be your path to glory. I'll do the job this very night, provided that the price is right. How much? How much?
The tortoise cried.
That all depends.
The rat replied.
Which motor you require on board, a Rolls, a Bentley, or a Ford? The fastest one.
The tortoise said.
I want a racing thoroughbred.
The deal was struck, arrangements made, and willingly the tortoise paid. As soon as Rat was all alone, he tiptoed to the telephone and asked to speak to Mr. Hare, and said,
Hello, it's Ratty here.
The hare said,
Hello, Rat, what's new? And how are things tonight with you?
Rat answered,
Would you pay a lot to hear about an evil plot? Would you, for instance, give your shirt to know who's going to do you dirt?
There was a silence on the line. Then Hare cried,
Who's the rotten swine? Come on now, Ratty, tell me true. You know I do the same for you.
The Rat said, very soft and sly,
No go, old man. Goodbye, goodbye. Wait,
cried Hare.
Don't go away. How much do you want? I'll pay.
And so once more old Ratty made a very advantageous trade, and after he had got his fee he told of Tortoise's villainy. The Hare jumped up and down and cried,
That's cheating. He's disqualified.
The Rat, with nauseating joy, said,
Hate to tell you this, old boy. Your contract simply says you race. The two of you from place to place. It doesn't ban the clever use of engines giving extra juice. I'm cooked.
The Hare yelled out.
I'm done. I'll lose my favourite restaurant.
The Rat said, slimier than ever,
Are you forgetting rats are clever? I'm sure arrangements could be made, provided extra cash is paid. I could, for instance, guarantee, in token of this extra fee, that irrespective of how fast the tortoise goes, you won't be last. I'd see that all his tyres go flat. I'd guarantee it.
said the Rat.
How much?
The other cried.
An awful lot.
The Rat replied. The Hare now paid a second bill, and Dirty Rat got richer still. This thrilling, epoch-making race was by agreement taking place along the road beneath the hill to finish by the barley mill. The Rat, meanwhile, had tipped a load of spiky nails across the road, then hid himself, when that was done, behind the hedge to see the fun. Spectators all along the way had come to watch and shout hooray. The field mice, weasels, hedgehogs, stoats, and rabbits in their furry coats all lined the route and waved their flags and picnicked out of paper bags. An ancient fox who ran the show yelled out,
Get ready, steady, go!
Now Torty gunned his great machine, and off he went in clouds of steam, and soon, because of all that power, was doing 50 miles an hour. Each time he had to change a gear, black smoke came belching from his rear. Each time he had to use the brake, his shell began to creak and shake. But oh, it was a wondrous thing to see a tortoise on the wing.
I'm going to win with lengths to spare.
The tortoise yelled to Mr. Hare.
Oh, no, you're not.
The Hare replied.
For I've got Ratty on my side.
And just a moment after that, all 4 of Torty's tyres went flat. He had to stop. He had no choice. And Hare, in an exultant voice, cried out,
Well, that's the end of you. Stand back, I'm coming through.
The Hare forgot that just ahead lay all the nails that Rat had spread. The spiky things were everywhere, and silly, foolish Mr. Hare had spikes in every foot and toe. He couldn't run. He couldn't go. He shouted,
I can run no more. We'll have to call the race a draw.
The tortoise, all his tyres flat, said sadly,
I agree to that.
Meanwhile, the dirty Mr. Rat went home and counted all his pay. He'd had a profitable day. So just remember, if you can, don't tangle with a businessman. It doesn't matter who you choose. They always win, we always lose. If you were here and I was there, if you were tortoise, I was hare, we'd both get diddled in the end by people like our ratty friend. The Price of Debauchery. My mother said, there are no joys in ever kissing silly boys. Just one small kiss and one small squeeze can land you with some foul disease. But, Ma'am, do you mean from just a kiss? You know quite well my meaning, miss. Last week, when coming home from school, I clean forgot Mum's golden rule. I let Tom Young, that handsome louse, steal one small kiss behind my house. Oh, woe is me. I've paid the price. I should have listened to advice. My mum was right 100-fold. I've caught Tob's horrid ruddy cold. Physical training.
Our gym instructress, Miss McPhee, when gym was over, said to me,
Stay on, Bill Smith. I'll teach you things. I'll make you better on the rings. And after that, let's reinforce your work upon the vaulting horse.
I stayed behind. She shut the door. She'd never been so kind before. She said,
So you can get it right, I'll have to hold you very tight.
She held me here. She held me there. By gum, she held me everywhere. She kindly taught me, after that, to wrestle with her on the mat. Oh, gosh, the things she taught to me. Our gym instructress, Miss McPhee.
The Emperor's New Clothes.
The royal tailor, Mr. Ho, had premises on Savile Row, and thence the king would make his way at least a dozen times a day. His passion was for gorgeous suits, and sumptuous cloaks and fur-lined boots, and brilliant waistcoats lined in red, hand-sewn with gold and silver thread. Within the palace things were grand, with valets everywhere on hand, to hang the clothes and clean and press, and help the crazy king to dress. But clothes are very dangerous things, especially for wealthy kings. This king had gone to part so fast, his clothes came first, his people last. One valet, who was seen to leave a spot of gravy on a sleeve, was hung from rafters by his hair and left forever dangling there. Another, who had failed to note a fleck of dust upon a coat, was ordered to be boiled alive, a fate not easy to survive. And one who left a pinch of snuff upon a pale blue velvet cuff was minced inside a large machine and reappeared as margarine. Oh, what a beastly, horrid king! The people longed to do him in. And so a dozen brainy men met secretly inside a den to formulate a subtle plot to polish off this royal clot. Up spake the very brainiest man, who cried,
I've got a wizard plan. Please come with me. We all must go to see the royal tailor, Ho. We'll tell him very strong and true exactly what he's got to do.
So thus the secret plans were laid, and all arrangements quickly made. 'Twas winter-time with lots of snow, and every day the king would go to ski a bit before he dined, in ski suits specially designed. But even on these trips he'd stop to go into the tailor's shop.
Oh, Majesty,
Cried Mr. Ho.
I cannot wait to let you know that I've contrived at last to get from secret weavers in Tibet a cloth so magical and fine, so unbelievably divine, you've never seen its like before, and never will do any more.
The king yelled out,
I'll buy the lot, I'll purchase every yard you've got.
The tailor smiled and bowed his head.
Oh, honoured sire,
He softly said,
this marvellous magic cloth has got amazing ways to keep you hot, and even when it's icy cold, you still feel warm as molten gold. However hard the north wind blows, you still won't need your underclothes.
The king said,
If it's all that warm, I'll have a skiing uniform. I want ski trousers and a jacket. I don't care if it costs a packet. Produce the cloth. I want to see this marvellous stuff you're selling me.
The tailor, feigning great surprise, said,
Sire, it's here, before your eyes.
The king said,
Where? Just tell me where. It's in my hands, O king, right here.
The king yelled, tearing at his hair.
Don't be an ass, there's nothing there.
The tailor cried,
Hold on, I pray. There's something I forgot to say. This cloth's invisible to fools, and nincompoops, and other ghouls. For brainless men who round a twist, this cloth does simply not exist. But seeing how you're wise and bright, I'm sure it glistens in your sight.
Now right on cue, exactly then, in burst the dozen brainy men. They shouted,
Oh, what lovely stuff! We want some too. Do you have enough?
Extremely calm, the tailor stands with nothing in his empty hands, and says,
No, no, this gorgeous thing is only for my lord, the king.
The king, not wanting to admit to being a proper royal twit, cried out,
Oh, isn't it divine? I want it all. It's mine, it's mine. I want a skiing outfit most, so I can keep as warm as toast.
The brainy men all cried,
Egad, oh, majesty, you lucky lad. You'll feel so cosy in the snow with temps at 0 and below.
Next day the tailor came to fit the costume on the royal twit. The brainy men all went along to see that nothing should go wrong. The tailor said,
Strip naked, sire. This suit's so warm you won't require your underclothes or pants or vest or even hair upon your chest.
And now the clever Mr. Ho put on the most terrific show of dressing up the naked king in nothing, not a single thing.
That's right, sir. Slip your arm in there, and now I'll zip you up right here. Do you feel comfy? Does it fit? Or should I take this in a bit?
Now during this absurd charade, and while the king was off his guard, the brainy men, so shrewd and sly, had turned the central heating high. The king, although completely bare, with not a stitch of underwear, began to sweat and mop his brow and cried,
I do believe you now. I feel as though I'm going to roast. This suit will keep me warm as toast.
The queen just then came strolling through with ladies of her retinue. They stopped. They gasped. There stood the king, as naked as a piece of string, as naked as a popinjay, with not a fig leaf in the way. He shouted, striking up a pose,
Behold my marvellous skiing clothes. These clothes will keep me toasty warm, in hail or sleet or snow or storm.
Some ladies blushed and hid their eyes and uttered little plaintive cries, but some, it seemed, enjoyed the pleasures of looking at the royal treasures. A brazen wench cried,
Oh, my hat. Hey, girls, just take a look at that.
The queen, who'd seen it all before, made swiftly for the nearest door. The king cried,
Now I'm off to ski. You ladies want to come with me?
They shook their heads, so off he went, a madman off on pleasure bent. The crazy king put on his skis, and now, oblivious to the freeze, he shot outdoors and skied away, still naked as a popinjay. And thus this fool, so lewd and squalid, in half an hour was frozen solid. And all the nation cried,
Hey-ho! The king's deep frozen in the snow!
A Little Nut Tree.
I had a little nut tree, nothing would it bear. I searched in all its branches, but not a nut was there. Oh, little tree, I begged, give me just a few. The little tree looked down at me and whispered,
Nuts to you. The Dentist and the Crocodile.
The crocodile, with cunning smile, sat in the dentist's chair. He said,
Right here and everywhere my teeth require repair.
The dentist's face was turning white. He quivered, quaked, and shook. He muttered,
I suppose I'm going to have to take a look. I want you
Crocodile declared.
to do the back ones first. The molars at the very back are easily the worst.
He opened wide his massive jaws. It was a fearsome sight. At least 300 pointed teeth, all sharp and shining white. The dentist kept himself well clear. He stood 2 yards away. He chose the longest probe he had to search out the decay.
I said to do the back ones first.
The crocodile called out.
You're much too far away, dear sir, to see what you're about. To do the back ones properly, you've got to put your head deep down inside my great big mouth.
The grinning Crocky said. The poor old dentist wrung his hands, and weeping in despair, he cried,
No, I see them all extremely well from here.
Just then, in burst a lady, in her hands a golden chain. She cried, Oh, Croc, you naughty boy, you're playing tricks again.
Watch out!
The dentist shrieked and started climbing up the wall.
He's after me! He's after you! He's going to eat us all!
Don't be a twit, the lady said, and flashed a gorgeous smile. He's harmless. He's my little pet, my lovely crocodile. Hot and cold.
A woman whom my mother knows came in and took off all her clothes. Said I, not being very old, By golly gosh, you must be cold.
No,
She cried.
indeed I'm not. I'm feeling devilishly hot.
Alibaba and the 40 Thieves.
A very decent Arab sport called Alibaba, Al for short, was standing, so as to be polite, behind a tree and out of sight, performing with his normal tact a very simple, natural act. While standing there and doing this, and gazing down a small abyss, he suddenly became aware of 40 fierce horsemen there. They looked like thieves, and thieves they were, each one a vicious plunderer. They stopped before a mighty cliff, and suddenly it looked as if this gathering of 40 thieves had something tricky up their sleeves. The leader, it was surely he, now shouted,
Open sesame!
And suddenly, surprise, surprise, in front of Alibaba's eyes, the mighty rock face opened wide to show a mammoth cave inside. Then all the 40 thieves careered inside the cave and disappeared. Al knew at once that he had heard a very secret magic word. From now on he, if he was right, could open any door in sight. He ran for home. He couldn't wait. He dashed in through his garden gate and stood quite out of breath before his humble little cottage door. He paused and counted 1, 2, 3, then shouted,
Open sesame!
Behold! At once this little door, which had been firmly locked before, began to open very wide, with no one helping from inside.
It's magic!
Alibaba screams.
It's far beyond my wildest dreams. I'll bet I'm able now, gee whiz, to open any door there is. Oh, what a power I possess. Oh, what excitement and success. But wait,
He said,
no need to shout. Let's simmer down and think things out. Young fools rush in, it's always said, where even angels fear to tread.
How wise! Had this been you or me, we would have jumped up instantly and rushed along the street point blank to rob the safe in Barclay's Bank. Not Alibaba, no, not he. He wanted fun, not villainy. And so, upon that self-same day, at midnight, Ali made his way to London. which he knew quite well, and thence into the Ritz Hotel. These days a well-dressed Arab gent in flowing robes on pleasure bent is welcomed and is treated well in every really good hotel. The Ritz is truly very grand, perhaps the finest in the land. The hall is full of chandeliers, and duchesses, and ancient peers, and saucy women wearing jewels, and baronets and other fools. But Alibaba swept right through and up the stairs, and came into the first of all the bedroom floors, where there were lots and lots of doors. Slowly he walked the corridor, and as he passed each bedroom door, he took the simple liberty of saying,
"Open sesame."
By gosh, as each door opened wide, he saw some funny things inside. One man was drinking beer in bed, and one was standing on his head. A man with a terrific snore was fast asleep upon the floor. A woman in a camisole was dancing to some rock and roll. In one large room, a bearded crank was fishing in a water tank, with rod and line and huge delight, and shouting out,
"I've got a bite!"
A naked girl and some male freak were playing games of hide and seek. While one man gobbled up a kipper, his girl drank champagne from a slipper. In one big bed there slept a goat, a diamond necklace round its throat, and in the honeymooners' suite, what goings-on beneath the sheet! As well as that, our hero saw some things he'd never seen before, fantastic sights both rich and rare, that no one's going to mention here. Al could not quite believe his eyes.
"What's wrong?"
He gasps.
"With all these guys. The rich have most peculiar habits. Less like humans, more like rabbits."
And then the shouts and yells began. From every woman, every man, from every room, all down the floor, they yelled,
"Who's opened up my door?"
They surged into the passageway in various states of disarray, some naked as the day is long, with absolutely nothing on. The naughty girls, their virile beaux, none of them wearing any clothes. And then the goat came out as well, bringing the most appalling smell. One man yelled out,
"There's burglars here!"
and fired a pistol in the air. A millionairess in the nude had to be forcibly subdued. She cried,
"My emerald bracelet's gone. I know quite well I had it on."
Old men, astounded at their luck, forgot themselves and ran amok. Plump thighs were tweaked and bottoms pinched, and finally a duke was lynched. Such chaos in the corridor no one had ever seen before. And Alibaba thought,
By gosh, I'm awfully glad that I'm not posh. I wouldn't want to go round nude like this lot here. They're all half-stewed. They're all completely round the bend. I've enjoyed myself no end.
So Alibaba, feeling swell, slips quietly from the Ritz Hotel.
But wait,
He cries out as he leaves,
what's happened to the 40 thieves? I clean forgot to put them in. Oh, well,
he murmurs with a grin.
who cares? Not me. What's done is done. I really can't please everyone. Hey diddle diddle. Hey diddle diddle, we're all on a fiddle. Never get up until noon. We only take cash, which we carefully stash, and we work by the light of the moon.
Mary, Mary.
Mary, Mary, quite contrary, how does your garden grow?
I live with my brat in a high-rise flat, so how in the world would I know? Hansel and Gretel.
Mum said to Dad,
Those kids of ours, the food that each of them devours. That Hansel, cripes, that little tick, to watch him eat it makes me sick. And as for ghastly, greedy Gretel, I'm turning round to boil the kettle, and while I'm at it she's been able to guzzle all that's on the table.
The father merely shrugged and sighed. Mum waved her frying pan and cried,
My motto is that we come first. Them kids should always get the worst. Now look, if we could rub them out, there'd be more beans and sauerkraut and stuff for you and me to eat. Mind you, we'd have to be discreet.
The father said, Well, what's to do? We can't just flush 'em down a loo. To which the mother answered,
No, they're much too big. They wouldn't go.
What if, the father said, they fell, quite accidentally, down the well?
Oh, no.
Mum said.
I doubt we ought to. It might pollute the drinking water. I think it's better, on the whole, to take them for a little stroll and lose them in among the trees. Now, surely that's a better wheeze.
Let's do it, Dad cried out, and then we'll never see the pigs again.
Walkies!
The parents cried.
It's spring! Let's go and hear the birdies sing. Let's look for robins in the trees. Let's pick some wild anemones.
Now Hansel suddenly espies his mother's shrewd and shifty eyes. He whispers softly, Listen, sis, I don't much like the smell of this. I think our loving Mum and Dad are plotting something rather bad. I think I'd better mark our track to help us on the journey back. So on the walk, when outward bound, he scatters breadcrumbs on the ground. They walk, all four, for hours and hours. They see no robins, pick no flowers. The wood is dark and cold and bare. And Dad says, Children, stay right here. Your mum and I have things to do. We'll see you later. Toodaloo. They sidled off with perfect ease and disappeared among the trees.
They're going to dump us,
Gretel cried. They won't succeed, the boy replied. We'll get back home. We cannot fail by following the breadcrumb trail. Just take my hand and come with me. We'll find our way. You wait and see. But oh, alas, where crumbs had been, there now was nothing to be seen. Young Gretel cried,
You silly twit! The crows have eaten every bit!
Poor little children all alone, the foul and filthy parents flown, poor little children all forlorn to face the dismal, murky morn. We'll starve to death, young Hansel cried, when all at once the youth espied a funny little snow-white bird who spoke as follows word for word.
Come, follow me, you troubled things. I'll take you on my silver wings to safety, to a lovely place where you can live in peace and grace.
This wondrous bird then led them forth for miles and miles towards the north, until at last there hove in sight a lovely cottage, painted white. And there, before the cottage door, these two enraptured children saw a sweet old dame with rosy skin, who smiled and said,
Oh, do come in. You must be hungry, little lambs.
She fed them treacle tarts and hams and sugar buns and gorgeous jam. The children cried,
Oh, thank you, ma'am.
The woman with the rosy cheeks now smiles again and softly speaks.
My darling children, as you see, you eat extremely well with me.
She then serves up the second treat, a very curious roast of meat. All sizzling hot and crispy brown, the happy children wolf it down. The hostess says,
Do have some more. I doubt you've tasted this before.
Young Hansel asks her, Is it lamb? Or is it beef? Or is it ham? Whatever it is, I must admit, it's awfully tender, isn't it? The woman said,
This special meat is the only kind I like to eat.
Then Gretel says,
I'll make a bid. This meat is either goat or kid.
The woman says,
Well, no, and yes. I must say kid's a clever guess.
She smiled and chewed and chewed and smiled, and looked so innocent and mild. As soon as they had left the table, the woman led them to a stable. Stable? They wondered, turning pale. The place looked like a sort of jail, with bars and bolts and horrid things like manacles and iron rings. The woman said,
"Go in and look. It's such a cosy little nook."
So Hansel, wanting to explore, went boldly through the open door. The woman quickly slammed it, bang! The bars and locks and bolts went clang. "Hey, let me out!" young Hansel cried.
"You stay in there.
The dame replied.
I'm going to feed you up a treat until you're fat enough to eat."
The brothers Grimm, who wrote this story, made it 1,000 times more gory. I've taken out the foulest scene, in order that you won't turn green. It is beyond me how it came to merit such enormous fame. Did parents really, in those days, agree to read such gruesome plays to little children in the night? And did they never die of fright? It might have been okay, who knows, if there'd been humour in the prose. Did I say humour? Wilhelm Grimm? There's not a scrap of it in him. I'll cut the grisly ending short, but even so I think I ought to tell you gently what came next. I'll make it brief, so don't be vexed. Just when the stove is nice and hot, and water's boiling in the pot's for boiling Hansel in, the stove for crisping up his skin, young Gretel, in her pinafore, flings open wide the oven door.
"The fire is going out!"
She cried. The woman pokes her head inside, and Gretel, with a springy jump, takes aim and kicks her on the rump. She totters forward, in she goes head first, and last of all her toes. Now Gretel, with a gleeful roar, slams shut the open oven door. The temperature inside, she sees, is just on 450 degrees. And soon this red-hot oven heat gives out the smell of roasting meat. The child runs fast as she is able to open up the prison stable.
"Hansel,
She shouts.
we're free at last! The foul old dame is roasting fast!"
Young Hansel cried, "Oh, well done you! Oh, what a splendid thing to do! But then again, you must admit, you always like to cook a bit." Aladdin and the Magic Lamp.
A very wicked old Chinese, called Jock McFadden, if you please,
His father may have been a Scot, his mother certainly was not.
had found, while snooping on the sly, a secret cave outside Shanghai. Excitedly, he peered inside. His eyeballs popped, he jumped and cried,
Great heavens above, well, I'll be dashed. This cave is absolutely stashed with gorgeous, gleaming, precious jewels. I wonder why those Chinese fools have not gone in and grabbed the lot. Cripes! What a fortune I've got!
The cave was huge, in solid rock, and standing there, old Chinese Jock espied amidst the murk and damp a most unusual little lamp. This lamp gave out a lovely glow, and Jock McFadden wasn't slow to realize that this must be the magic lamp that nobody for centuries had ever found, although they knew it was around.
Just say the word, this lamp would bring you absolutely anything.
A ton of sweets,
A dozen hams,
full marks in end-of-term exams,
a catapult,
a huge cigar.
a snazzy scarlet racing car.
Right now, Jock's mind was going through the things he'd asked the lamp to do.
He'd turn his landlord, Kung Egg Nog, into an ugly jumping frog.
He'd have the Emperor, oh no go, incinerated nice and slow.
And as for Mr. Hao Yu Pong, who always beat him at mahjong, he'd see that Mr. Hao Yu paid in every single game they played.
And now this Scottish Chinese knave moved softly through the murky cave. Over the pearls and gold he stepped, and on towards the lamp he crept. And just as he reached out a hand to grab it quickly off its stand, a ghoulish, snarling, ghastly sound came up from somewhere underground. Then slimy tendrils tugged his coat and tried to fasten round his throat.
An icy wind swept through the cave, then darkness darker than the grave.
And now a voice was heard to shout,
"Get out, you filthy thief, get out! No half Chinese, half Scottish scamp is going to steal this magic lamp!"
Jock's liver and his gizzards froze. 2 bony fingers tweaked his nose. He screamed. He ran with all his power and did not stop for half an hour.
"Although I want that lamp,"
he cried,
"I'm never going back inside. Not gold or silver or champagne will get me in that cave again."
But even now, though out of breath and tired and frightened near to death, this wicked half-baked mandarin was not too keen on giving in. So finally, like all great thinkers, who also happen to be stinkers, he hit upon that ancient creed, the changeless motto of his breed.
"Why not get someone else to do your dangerous, dirty work for you?"
He hurried to the marketplace and picked him out a friendly face.
A boy who stood there trying to hawk a load of sweet and sour pork.
Jock now behaved, to be exact, precisely as car salesmen act. He grinned and grabbed the youthful hand and shouted,
"Oh, how great, how grand! I've found my relative at last, my long-lost nephew from the past." The boy exclaimed,
"My dear old trout, I don't know what you're on about,"
"No, no!
cried this old Scots carbuncle.
I swear that I'm your long-lost uncle. Tell me your name. Mine's Jock McFadden." The boy replied,
"My name's Aladdin." Jock said,
"I'll give you 7 yen. I might go up as high as 10 if you will help with something small. I am your uncle after all." The boy said,
"Uncle? Oh, my hat! I'm dashed if I'm believing that. You don't look any more Chinese than chalk looks like a Stilton cheese." Jock said,
"I'll raise my offer then. I'll go as high as 20 yen. The poor boy cried,
"You tempt me so? Oh, gosh. All right, then, off we go." So when they reached the mighty cave, Jock said,
"You must be swift and brave. Don't pause or stop for anyone. Just grab that lamp and out you run."
"I don't quite see,"
Aladdin said.
"why you can't get the lamp instead," Jock cried,
"Aladdin, little love,"
giving the boy a good old shove.
"inside that cave is paradise. It's full of everything that's nice, like bags of sweets and chocolate bars. There's arrows, Kit Kats, Crunchies, Mars." Aladdin said,
"I still don't know why you are not so keen to go,"
"I'm old.
Jock answered.
All that damp will give me rheumatism and cramp." Aladdin said,
"What if I meet some brute that thinks I'm good to eat? A gorgon or a hippogriff, a doodle-wang, a boodle-sniff. There's lots of dangerous things around in murky caverns underground." Jock whispered lecherous and low,
"Now, if you really want to know, the only dangerous things down there are dancing girls with bottoms bare. I think you might enjoy a fling with some curvaceous little thing." Aladdin yelled,
"That's what I crave!"
and shot into the giant cave.
Inside the cave, the gilt, the chrome, oh, what a mighty pleasure dome! A cavern measureless to man, just like it was with Kubla Khan. Aladdin saw the jewels and pearls, but where were all the dancing girls? Just then he spied the little lamp and thought, I wonder why that scamp so badly wanted me to snatch that thing for him. Now what's the catch? He touched it gingerly and wham! There was the most almighty bang bang! And suddenly, in clouds of smoke, appeared the most amazing bloke, a sort of genie or a djinn, an ugly brute with scarlet skin and purple tassels in his hair, and nothing on but underwear. The bloke cried,
I'm your magic djinn. Feel free to ask me anything. Just make a wish, I beg of you, and I will make your wish come true. Aladdin said, a trifle comic.
If you're the djinn, then where's the tonic? The djinn yelled with a mighty shout.
You think I'm joking? Try me out. Aladdin said,
Oh, mighty djinn, although my hopes are pretty thin, my only wish, I tell you true, is to become a djinn like you. The djinn was stunned. He couldn't speak. At last he said,
You've got some cheek. I've never heard, I'm pretty sure, a crazy wish like that before. This isn't just the sort of job that can be done by any slob. Aladdin cried,
Believe you me, I promise you I want to be a magic disappearing djinn who disappears both out and in. I want a little lamp like yours. I want to go to distant shores. I want to say to anyone, just make a wish, and then it's done. The djinn cried,
Right. Farewell, be brave.
A vast explosion filled the cave. Then thunder roared and lightning flashed, and walls caved in and ceilings crashed. Aladdin felt as though his belly was being filled with boiling jelly, as if his blood was being dried, as though his flesh was being fried, as if his body and his soul were cooking in a casserole, as if the whole of him, no less, was in a mighty trouser press. His nails, his teeth, his bones, his skin were being squished and squashed so thin until, just like a wind-blown feather, he disappeared altogether. Aladdin of the magic lamp had gone into the other camp. He had become a mighty djinn, a wondrous being who could spin around the world in half a shake, dispensing magic in his wake.
That happened, I will have you know, at least 500 years ago. He's still around, and when he can, he picks upon some lucky man. The lamp is touched, a wish expressed. Aladdin simply does the rest. And greatness, dazzling as the sun, then falls upon the lucky one. He once allowed an English scamp to touch and rub his magic lamp.
The man said,
Oh, I beg, I pray, please help me with this lousy play. I'm finding it extremely hard, this struggle to become a bard.
Aladdin helped him with the plot. Will Shakespeare murmured,
Thanks a lot. Another time, a little child, who was no more than 4 or 5, said,
Help me please compose some bars of music that will reach the stars.
Aladdin took his hand and said,
I'll sprinkle stardust on your head.
All sorts of symphonies and things came pouring out on silver wings. Aladdin's lamp had made him play, and Wolfgang Mozart cried,
Hooray!
This sort of marvellous magic wheeze been going on for centuries. Aladdin suddenly appears, not more than once in 50 years.
But when he does, oh boy, oh then great genius is born again.
Just think, next time he passes through, the lucky person might be you. This audiobook was produced and published by Penguin Books Limited.